All right, well, thanks everybody for joining today. My name is John Seguin. I'm the President and Chief Librarian here at Third Iron. You're attending the Third Iron 2023 Roadmap, and thank you for spending your time with us today. I'm going to be reviewing some of the things that we worked on in the last few months, as well as focusing on what we're working on through the rest of this year. With me is my colleague, Bridget. Bridget is going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to jump in at any time into the chat and she'll try and help you out. If there's a question that she thinks makes sense to save for me to address at the end of the presentation, she certainly will mark that for us. And then after the presentation is over, there will certainly be time for us to stick around and answer any questions that you have. But without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, a big thank you to all of our existing customers. We really appreciate your business. We've been around now for 11 years, hard to believe, but have now over 1,500 libraries around the world. And that started with university libraries. A lot of us have a lot of ties to universities. But over time, that's grown into hospital libraries, government libraries, research and development facilities and corporations, all around the world. So it's been really, really fun to see the company grow in this way. So thank you. One of the things that we've been focusing on is this concept we call intelligent linking, which is a combination of the article level intelligence that LibKey is known for in combination with our AI-based source selection algorithm. And we think the unique combination of these two elements is what delivers LibKey's fast and reliable informed linking. I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about what these different elements mean, because different elements of that are going to be worked on throughout this year. So I think it's important to kind of understand the framework of how this is all being accelerated. One of the challenges of LibKey is that it is a little bit of a black box in that you put an input into it, find me this article, and we do our very best to make that happen. And we continually are working on this. This is the biggest investment in the company, is trying to make this really great intelligent linking. So it's sometimes nice to pause and kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and show you all the pieces that go into how we make this work. So one of the things that has driven this is what we see as a strong need for article intelligence. And that has a number of different components, which I'm talking about here. So one is open access status. Is this individual article open access as a version of record available from the publisher somewhere right now? If we can know that, we can definitely accelerate the user journey. And that's especially challenging, though, when we have so many hybrid journals that exist. More on that in a little bit here. The other thing is understanding not just, is there an open access version, but what version is that in terms of publication version? Is it a published version? Is it the submitted manuscript, an accepted manuscript? Because that different provenance kind of then determines how do we put that in our linking waterfall. Aggregator availability is also another component here. Is it actually available at the aggregator that we're going to wind up linking to? We know that aggregators can have challenges with currency and making sure that the article's going to match up with metadata and so on. And we want to try and minimize dead ends with OpenURL. Editorial status is something regularly published, or has it been retracted? Or is there an expression of concern about that article? Those different statuses aren't always very visible to the user, depending on their point of discovery. So inserting that into our algorithm to determine how we're going to link or signpost that status is also an important part of article intelligence. And of course, various formats. Different users want to access articles differently. They may want to get right to the PDF. They may want to get to the HTML version. And there's good reasons for that. A lot of users are PDF driven, which makes a lot of sense. But in certain disciplines, that HTML version might have data sets or other ancillary articles that are very important to your research. So making sure that users have a choice about that, and that becomes the choice focus for users, is really important. And then finally, problematic journals. These can be bad actor journals, publishers may be operating in bad faith, predatory journals. There's a lot of different statuses for these types of things. And being able to alert users to that fact is also another element of article intelligence that we want to be able to do. Now, if we know all these individual things about articles, that can be really, really important in determining how we link to things and how we signpost different elements. But the other aspect is making source selection really intelligent and automatic. Because traditionally, link resolvers are focused on looking at all the different sources that you have available for a particular article. And that can create pretty long lists that look something like this to try and navigate to the full text. Some providers have worked out ways to try and automate this and kind of select one. But typically that comes down to the library then, putting the onus on the library to say, can you stack rank all of your sources? Tell us which one to select first and so on. But it's hard to do that if you don't also have the article intelligence that's going to drive which source you should be selecting. So the unique combination of these things where LibKey is looking at the article level intelligence to help inform what source to select, and also looking at each individual source and categorizing those helps make all of this possible. So this is how an article is then linked and how we select how to build a link. First, we take that article record and we look at its identifying information, and we match that up with our article metadata that comes directly from publishers. We then also look to see what library entitlements that the library may have about this, as well as what open access availability there is. Depending on those things, we may route things in different directions. We also want to understand the library's authentication, which can be everything from a simple IP address to proxy servers, VPN, Open Athens, complicated SAML for these 4 sources, VPN for the rest kind of situations. But we have to know how to authenticate users the way that you do. We also want to understand if there is open access, what article version is this, and what formats we can present for the user. Can we present both a PDF and an article link? And what formats does aggregators have this available in, and do they have this material at all? And then finally, editorial status. Do you have is there no editorial status added, or is this something that's been retracted, or an expression of concern added? And then all of these then flow into this AI-based source selection, where generally speaking, we're looking at that open access version of record as the first and best way to link you to the content. And if that is not available, then looking at your subscriptions from journal publishers directly. And if that doesn't exist, then subscribe journals from aggregators, then into non-version of record in certain situations, and ILL and document delivery. All of this is calculated within 1/10 of a second. So all of this is kind of invisible to the user. And what the end result is really reliable linking. Because by doing it in this sort of AI-based source selection, you don't actually have to have every single element in your knowledge base be completely correct. We need to look at it and judge the best available link, because that's what we're going to be following. So overall, that turns into just higher reliability for users. Now, all of this takes place from all different points of discovery for users. You've got your discovery services like Primo and EDS and WorldCat Discovery and so on, databases from EBSCO and ProQuest, APA, et cetera, and open web searching, where people are at PubMed or Wikipedia, ResearchGate. And there's different LibKey tools that operate in these different areas: LibKey Discovery, LibKey Link, and LibKey Nomad and IO, for example. But they all use the same core LibKey technology and LibKey resolution scheme to do their functions. So that's why it's important to remember that regardless of which of these products you're interacting with, the same benefits are applied to all of them. So with that review under our belt here, let's take a look at what we're working on in 2023 and how it continues to evolve these various aspects of LibKey. So the first thing we're going to be doing is expanding editorial status. So last year we introduced retracted article status by partnering with Retraction Watch, and that was a really popular feature. Lots of good feedback from libraries about that. But as we integrated that, we started finding out that there's actually additional retractions that they're not covering presently. And we found different ways that we can identify those and correctly pull in the metadata to have that material. So we're going to be expanding the scope of retractions that we know about in the product. We're also going to be tracking expressions of concern, which, if you're not familiar, is sort of like a precursor to retraction. So an expression of concern means that the publisher has notified the public that this particular article has some red flags about it, that they're being investigated and so on. And sometimes it then turns into a full retraction. Other times it just sort of sits there and, there's some unease, I guess, about the publication status and validity. And so they keep a notification on their site. We want to, just like retraction, bring that information into the user's workflow so that if they're doing those literature reviews, they're doing those scholarly searches, that they can see that as part of their evaluation of different articles that might be relevant for them. The other service we're looking at integrating is called Cables. If you're a current Cables customer, then we'll be able to integrate these problematic journals. So that is a service that we're not applying to everyone because it is licensed data, but we do have hundreds of mutual customers. So if you are a Cables customer, we'll be able to then look at journals that are problematic, bad actor journals, and so on at the journal level, whereas expression of concern and retraction is focused more on the article level. These will all be added. The expression concern and retraction will be added automatically, as will Cables, but we'll be reaching out to individual mutual customers to let you know that the Cables data is going to be available for you. So here's what that looks like, kind of graphically. Here's our retraction. This exists today. So this is within the Primo system. Normally we'd have our download PDF links here, but we replace those dynamically with retracted article if we know this article is to be retracted. And you can see if I click on that, I then get this bright red LibKey format chooser page, which indicates all the reasons for retraction, the official retraction notice, and so on. Acts as a nice speed bump for users as they're navigating their literature searches. Here's the same sort of article retraction being identified by LibKey Nomad. So this is someone at the Taylor and Francis site. Here's an article that otherwise doesn't indicate it's been retracted, but because Nomad is aware of this, it's able to signpost that. And again, link off to this sort of speed bump with reasons why it was retracted. Expressions of concern then is a forthcoming feature, and that's going to follow the same type of design language that the retractions does. So in this case, we have this +1 article that has an expression of concern attached to it. We've added that then dynamically into the discovery system. And then I link out and I can see the original expression of concern notice and understand why there is an investigation going on with that title. For Cables, again, this is at the journal level. So if I'm looking at this article, it will indicate there's a problematic journal here. And if I click in through that, I can then click again to see the Cables journal report to understand why they believe that this is a problematic journal. And I can continue on to the full text if I'd like. Uniquely though with Cables, because it is looking at a title level and a journal level, there's additional value that we could do in something like LibKey Nomad because we can look at URLs. One of the elements of this is predatory titles, and the common sort of workflow that could be helpful here is if a researcher gets a solicitous email from an editor of one of these publications, saying, hey, you should contribute to our journal, et cetera, and they click through to look at the journal that they're maybe not be familiar with. When they get there, because the URL could be recognized by the Cables data within LibKey Nomad, we could indicate and signpost that there's a problematic journal here and link them off to the full Cables journal report so they could understand what the problematic issues are. So this expanded editorial status, like I mentioned, continues to grow off of Retraction Watch. You're going to see more retraction data, more expression of concern data, and that's going to be done automatically, no action needed on anyone's part. To add the Cables data, we will be reaching out to existing, customers existing overlapping customers between us and Cables to confirm that you do want this added as well to the LibKey workflow. But all of this adds up to more verification for the user that the material they're looking at is valid. It's something that they should be utilizing in their scholarly work. Now, on a different topic is accurate open access intelligence. I think this is one of the great challenges of libraries right now is trying to be as accurate as possible with open access. And we've been doing a bunch of innovative things to date by blending multiple OA data sources, including multiple Third Iron initiatives to evaluate and kind of tally together open access journals, look at different data ranges, what's open access after this date or that date, and also to vet and correct some unpaywall data as well. And by combining all this together, we come up with a really comprehensive and reliable linking scheme for open access articles backed by our industry-leading support, so that we have a dedicated ops team that if there is issues with the open access data, we have a lot of levers and switches on the back end where we can quickly correct those things and make sure that they're fixed for everybody. Now, today, the status of open access knowledge and open access linking in various systems uses different sources of open access information. So, most well-known ones are things like Unpaywall, DOAJ, Core, as well as publisher packages, right? Aggregator packages of open access titles. Because of the way these are pulled together and monitored, there's varying abilities for correcting errors and for following up with individual issues, because we are talking about literally millions of data points here. The results of that is that for linking, there can be a lot of missing open access, meaning things that are open access that simply are not registered in library systems because of the mechanisms involved. There can be incorrect links, right? Click on one link, you get a PDF for something that is completely unrelated to what you were hoping it was going to be. Misidentifying articles, so it's the right article, but you get there and it's actually paywalled. So having that sort of situation can also be, of course, very frustrating. Incomplete links to available formats. So sometimes there's PDF links available, sometimes there's not. And unclear versioning. So services saying, oh, here's PDF links, using Unpaywall in what I would call an unfiltered way, where they're not pulling attention, they're not having attention being paid to the types of versions there. So you might think that this is an equivalency to having a subscription, but it's actually the submitted manuscript, pre-peer review, et cetera, et cetera. So all of those elements can definitely engender some distrust in open access linking, unfortunately. And all of that then can make for very frustrating user experiences. So we think there's a strong need for library-centric OA linking, a system designed around enhancing library systems by working very hard to make this data reliable, well-reviewed, taking the best of various open access data sources that exist, as well as investing on our own to build and kind of pull this data together, and then exercising strong operational control. Having a great ops team that's very responsive and having all the right tools to turn things on and off and correct things as needed, and making sure that we stay very current in this. There's thousands and thousands of articles that come out every day, corrections, changes, and so on. Open access status is not necessarily permanent. It tends to be permanent in the case of, say, APCs and article processing charges that you're paying to make an article open access. But publishers may change their open access status for journals, at various times, right? This journal is now free before this date, but now it's not. And it's going to be, now it's going to be an open access journal, and now it's going to be hybrid. They kind of move things around a little bit from time to time. So keeping things reviewed on a very regular basis is also important for this. One of the most challenging things is hybrid journals. And if you're not familiar, a hybrid journal is a subscription journal in which only some articles are open access. This is a huge challenge for traditional link resolvers, which have been based on this idea of having date ranges of availability for something, right? Something is fully available, or it's fully open access, fully subscribed, or it's open access with a date-based embargo, free after 18 months, that sort of thing, free after 2002. And those things are well managed by a link resolver. But hybrid journals are on an individual article level, and they can shift and change over time. Things are made free, now they're not free. An APC was paid, so now that article is available. All those things can shift and move around quite a bit. So it is one of the biggest challenges for library linking right now. But it's also one of the biggest opportunities, I think, because there's so much being published in this manner that journals we don't subscribe to actually have a lot of content we can get access to. Here's an example of hybrid journals indexed in lots of databases. This is just one, API Psych Info. Just looked at the first 20 journals in the list there of their coverage. 15 of the 20 are hybrid titles. So just a ton of material is out there that it could be available, open access, full version of record, if our systems that do linking know about it. And if they don't, you get into this situation, right? Excuse me. So here's a number of journals that are published hybrid. And those journals, of course, are indexed in various databases that our users are using. Now, once a user clicks on that link resolver link, trying to get to it, the link resolver will look back at its knowledge base, see what packages you've turned on that you say you have access to, and so on. It will look at that title and go, sorry, yeah, that's not in the knowledge base as being available for you. So can't do it. Let me kick the user over here to interlibrary loan. User can make a request and so on. But then, of course, the very good staff in the interlibrary loan office will look at this and probably immediately figure out that, well, wait a minute, this article is actually open access directly from the publisher. And then, of course, they can get back to the user and say, oh, here it is. Okay, we can complete this request for you. But that just generates an unnecessary ILL request, causes churn for no good reason. It delays access for the user who's trying to use it in the beginning. And it frustrates users because, if you get into this situation where you're trying to, find an article that you want, the link resolver seems to push you off to this, user may not even bother requesting it. They may just go, yeah, I'm just going to go Google for this. And then all of a sudden they search Google Scholar and lo and behold, it links to the article at the publisher site and it just works. And then of course leaves the user thinking, well, what's up with these library systems? They don't even know that this is available. It seems like a very fundamental thing from a user's point of view that we would know this. But the folks on this call understand there's a lot of complexity to understand it. But that's why I think it's a challenge worth trying to overcome. Here's a little more graphical example for you on this. British Journal of Hospital Medicine. It's not available in this library's knowledge base. They don't subscribe to it, but of course it appears in searches and so on in databases like Medline. And so right now they click on that full text, and indeed the link resolver looks through what it knows about. It's like, nope, you don't have access. Off you go, and you wind up at the ILL desk, and all those usual things happen. With LibKey link in this exact same situation today, I click on this link. LibKey instantly recognizes that the article is OA, version of record at the publisher, and immediately links through without authentication needed to the PDF at the publisher's site. World's difference, and a really, really impactful thing that LibKey can do in these situations. So that's why we feel that additional investment in understanding this open access hybrid and really trying to crack that nut is a really worthy thing to do. And in fact, as we continue to accumulate this massive OA knowledge, we're going to be sharing that with discovery vendors as well, so that you can have a kind of database that you can turn on in your discovery systems, so that you are actually expanding what you're searching as content that is within your collection, because it will include these individual articles that are open access. A great way to just increase the amount of content available to you. So ultimately, this expands your collections with accurate knowledge, and it connects more users to more available full text, reduces the unnecessary interlibrary loan requests, and as this guy is showing here, delivers happier users. Now, on a very similar note, talking about ILL, we're also announcing an ILLiad-LibKey integration. So we've been working with the good folks at Atlas on this, and they are right now building a decision support pipeline integration add-on for LibKey. And what that means is that if you use ILLiad for ILL processing, this can actually automatically check if the library subscribes or there's an open access version of record available for the article being requested, and automatically respond back to the user with a link if it exists. So this is designed to prevent access delays and those unnecessary ILL requests. So it works a little bit like this. If a user manually submits via a form, for example, or is clicking through from the link resolver, like you saw in those other examples, from a database, an article that they want, and there's a DOI or PMID, within that request string, it instantly gets sent to LibKey for that library. LibKey checks to see if it's available, and if it is, it responds back to ILLiad in a positive way. ILLiad then immediately emails back the user saying, here you can get it with a LibKey link. So it's a really great way to automate these very common churn creating requests. And if it can't do any of this, or it comes up empty, of course, the normal workflow is followed. So all of this integration is completely server side. It's something really, really slick and automatic that happens and provides immediate benefit to users. On another note, you may have seen that at the top of last year, I'm sorry, at the end of last year, December 2022, we released our browsing email alert function. What this does is in browsing, when you've got journals on my bookshelf, you now receive either weekly or daily emails with a notification saying that there's journals that have new articles available for you. An enhancement to this that we're going to be releasing later in the year is this idea of having featured article callouts within those journals themselves, so that you see a little bit more data about what articles are new. A nice kind of thing to attract users into clicking through to see that material. And we've already seen comparing data between January 2022, in other words, pre-browsing journal updates, and January 2023, that there's been a significant increase in browsing interactivity and browsing downloads via that route, very much attributed to this email feature. So we know that this is popular, and we want to continue to invest in it to make it even more useful for user. LibKey E-Book linking. So another recent feature that we released in January was adding ebook support for Alma libraries into LibKey Nomad. We started with Alma libraries just because it's the largest constituency that we have, but we're going to be adding support for EBSCO, OCLC, and more pretty soon here. What this does is it not only looks at articles like LibKey Nomad has always done, but it expands that remit to look for ebooks as well. It's looking at those within publisher pages, so your Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, Sage, etc. But then it also is looking at common points of ebook discovery, like Amazon, Google Books, and Wikipedia. We're going to actually expand this to OCLC WorldCat as well pretty soon as well. So these are all places with very high search engine optimization, or SEO, meaning that if somebody's Googling for these book titles, many of those initial links are going to be ones that Nomad is aware of and knows how to look for the ISBN and produce this functionality. This ebook linking will also be added to LibKey Link and LibKey IO as well later this year. So you can see if I'm in a database and it's doing a book linking, that can actually be helped now with LibKey Link. And if I want to just look up an ISBN as well, in addition to DOIs and PMIDs, that ISBN lookup will be added to LibKey IO. Now, with all these different integrations that we've been talking about into various systems, various tools, we have started building a system that we call the Success Guides. Now, this is available under Getting Started at thirdiron.com, and it's a living system that will continue to add more information to as our services continue to evolve. But it's really nicely organized around academic libraries, hospital libraries, special libraries, different products within those categories, different resources you can use to learn about the products, as well as how to promote them and how to integrate them. A great service. Bridget just posted the direct link in the chat as well. But there's more. Now, also, I'm very excited to announce that we're coming out with new, what we call plus products. So this would be LibKey Nomad plus and Third Iron API plus. And we call them this because these are products that go beyond the existing remit of the LibKey services, which is very much distilled as, I want to find from any point of discovery the full text of this item, right? I'm in this discovery place. Can I get to full text? Let's build the link and so on, and do that very reliably. But we've been getting a lot of great feedback, particularly about LibKey Nomad from libraries around the world who've been installing this. They've been doing group policy installs. We right now are over 1.5 million devices around the world, all 5-star reviews in all the stores. Just lots of great feedback about this. And libraries have been asking us to say, can we go further than that? Further than connecting to articles and now to books, to do other things to engage their users and to help their users with their research journey. So that's what LibKey Nomad plus is about. So Nomad plus will have these dominant features as well as some others. It will be able to have domain intelligent messaging and custom linking. So going beyond the individual articles, you may want to also set up an individual domain like scopus.com that you may have access to, so that if a user arrives at that site, that you can provide an authentication route to get them authenticated and into that service. Or maybe if HBR, the Harvard Business Review, is a big title at your institution and people are going right to HBR, but you don't have access there, you get it from the EBSCO services, you can produce a little custom message with a link to bring them back into EBSCO. This will be a system that you'll be able to customize to an admin portal and set up whatever domains and messages and links that you'd like to automatically be reflected in your version of LibKey Nomad for your library. Also, LibChat integration from SpringShare. So if you are using that service or other chat services that we will expand to in the future as well, and you have that engagement with users, usually the limitation there is to start those chat sessions. You have to install some code on your library homepage, maybe in your discovery tool, but that's usually about the extent of it. People have to come to the library's portal to engage in that way. But with LibKey Nomad, they can be on any domain and you can have that type of interaction. So really exciting, lots of potential there to help users out where they're working and where they're doing their research. Bibliographic management integration. Folks have been asking us to say, when I'm using Nomad and I find an article on ResearchGate or I'm in PubMed or whatever, I may want to grab that citation really quick and drop it into Zotero or send it off to Mendeley or EndNote or whatever. So being able to have that bibliographic management ability to have that exported from the point of discovery is a really nice workflow enhancement for those users. And then finally, customized branding opportunities. So LibKey Nomad has the same look and feel, of course, for all libraries right now with the blue buttons and the green flame and so on. But especially for libraries who are doing these group policy installs, the feedback has been from them, we'd like to make this more customized for our library. Use the colors of our university, for example, and our logo, so people know that this is something brought to them by their library, by their institution, for their benefit and so on. So having great flexibility in that department as well will be part of LibKey Nomad++. There is going to be a webinar focused specifically on all the forthcoming Nomad++ features in greater detail. So that's going to be coming soon. Watch our newsletter for more information on that date. Related to that then is Third Iron API++. For a while now, we've actually had a service called the Third Iron Data Service, which is an additional paid service that provides access to all metadata elements for all journals covered by Third Iron, which is a programmatic access to volumes, issues, table of contents, and as well as an alerting for newly published articles. This is actually the same type of mechanism we use to build our own alerting service. So it's a way for libraries that have a strong penchant for programming their own tools and services to be able to use the rich data sources within the Third Iron ecosystem. We're going to be expanding this beyond what's in the data service today to also have additional services where we would provide journal recommendations, related journals by taxonomy, top taxonomic journals in a category, and more. So really making this a very well-rounded toolbox of programmatic features that developers can sink their teeth into. Similar to LibKey Nomad++, we're going to have additional webinars focused on this offering presented later this year as well. So in summary, there's basically two big buckets here of great roadmap things to go over. We have all these new features added at no charge here in blue: that enhanced editorial status notification, expanded retraction awareness, identification of expression of concern, optional integration of cables data if you subscribe to that service, comprehensive, accurate open access linking, a huge undertaking, but I think a really important one. That ILLiad integration that's going to be coming here in the second quarter. That expanded browsing email alerts with article detail, and expanded ebook support, linking both from additional systems beyond Alma, as well as ebook linking from databases and LibKey.io. All of those will be coming to you with nothing to configure, and it's just an automatic benefit by being a subscriber to the Third Iron Complete or the LibKey suite of services. Optionally then, for libraries interested in going above and beyond for Nomad and the API, we've got LibKey Nomad++ with that domain intelligent messaging, LibChat integration, citation management integration, and customized branding, and Third Iron's API++ with more advanced endpoints for even more dynamic custom application development possibilities. There you go. Lots of stuff to digest today. I hope this presentation was very helpful in understanding what we've been working on. But certainly, I'm happy to stick around, as is Bridget, to answer any other questions you have. But first, I want to turn to Bridget and see if there's any questions that arrived while I was going through the presentation that she wants me to address.
I don't think there were very many specific questions that weren't addressed in the presentation or answered in the chat, but we did have some suggestions for added ILL support later on, including DocLine and Relay for Canadian libraries. And then just to emphasize that we will be rolling out ebook linking for more than just Alma libraries in the future. We're just, moving through it.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I saw that there was, and like whenever we think about this integration with ILLiad, that's something that a number of ILLiad libraries brought to us. We, coordinated with Atlas, and we're able to get that done. Certainly, if you're working with other services, Tapasa is another one that we're talking with them about that, because of course it's in the OCLC kind of sphere there. But if there's other systems out there, certainly drop us a line that you're using. We're not being restrictive of that at all. Any service can work with us on that, and we're happy to have that conversation and see what we can build and see what we can do. Any other questions here? Let's see. Sandra is asking about group policy for Macs. That is a question of something we're looking into. I know that there's some institutions that are interested in that, and our team is kind of investigating different options for that right now. That's mostly, it's kind of like, it's less of a Nomad question and more of a kind of IT network understanding how these procedures are done, are happening. So we're working with folks to understand that right now, actually. Let's see, where else here? How much will the additional services cost to be priced? That's actively being worked on right now. We're trying to keep them quite modest. We're not trying to, create a whole other, same price as everything else kind of thing. It's going to be just an add-on kind of price. So that's the goal with that. But for exact prices, if you're interested in that right now, certainly happy to drop me a line at john@thirdiron.com. And as soon as we have that nailed down, I can follow up with you directly. That's no problem. Let's see, any other questions? Let's see, John asks, are any progress on LibKey Nomad integration with Google Scholar? Yeah, good question, John. Yeah, like in the past, Google has just been not crazy about us integrating with it. So it's not really us, it's more Google doesn't want us to do it. So that conversation is always evolving though. So maybe that will change over time, but it's not a technical limitation. It's a policy one for sure. But thanks for asking about that. Eden asked, does Third Eye have a forum to report problems with OA access? Okay, Bridget, you're on it. Yeah, so just shoot us a note. We're very quick to figure it out and slice and dice whatever you send us. So no problem at all. Any other questions here? Let's see.
I think there was one more from a Summon library, Alma Summon and eBooks, and when they can expect that.
Yeah, so if you might be using Serial Solutions instead of Alma in that case, and so on. Yeah, so those are all ones that we're looking at in the next few months. So that's an active thing that we're developing. We are looking to sort of in order of biggest groups first. So definitely after Alma, EBSCO is the second biggest. So that's the one we're actively building right now, and OCLC after that. Probably Serial Solutions after that, and so on. So yeah, just trying to help the most folks as fast as we can. But do not worry, everybody's in line there. Other questions I can help with?
I think that was everything from the chat. If I missed anything, I did get some direct messages as well, but I think I got them all. But please feel free to put them in the chat now. We've got one coming from Virginia. She prefaces it, long question.
Oh, okay, Virginia.
Okay, so yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
That's fine, yeah. She says, long question. Users don't need to tell LibKey anything about themselves other than their institution. Might there be a way to create an opt-in upfront authentication, say via Open Athens, so that an institution's user group, alumni, that has access to only some resources could benefit from LibKey Nomad more seamlessly? Yeah, like I think if it's alumni, and you are providing them some resources, we do have this, potential on our end, and it depends on if you can provide the right data and all that kind of thing. But some libraries have what we refer to as a second instance of the Third Iron services, which you can dedicate to a different group. So some you get a second instance for their medical library, and the medical library has slightly different entitlements than the main library. Same thing with alumni, different entitlements for alumni. And if you're able to parse that out and provide us the right data, that's a very low cost add-on to your base subscription. And we can create a second, sort of element for that, so that those alumni could identify themselves as being alumni of your institution. So if that sounds at all intriguing, certainly drop me a line. I'll connect you with the right people to further that conversation. But that may be a way to help the alumni out. And Martina says, will ebooks linking be available for TDNet? Most likely, yes. Yeah, so I think that would be supported too. So we just have a more minority set of customers using that. So we'll continue to look at it. If it's technically possible, we will support it. Absolutely. Thanks, Virginia. Okay, sounds good.
Might bring us up to current there, John, I think.
All right, sounds good. Well, hey, thanks everybody for attending. Really appreciate your time and your interest. If anything else comes up, you know where to find us. I'm John at thirdiron.com. Otherwise, have a great day. Thank you.